You are listening to episode 238 of the Game Deflators Podcast. My name's John, and I'm joined by Ryan.
Hey, everybody. Here at the Game Deflators Podcast, we like to talk about games we've recently picked up, games we're currently playing, and we're getting fishy with it in this week's Inflation Deflation Challenge.
Very nice, sir. So this week we played some Sega Marine Fishing. It's actually a game that I've been wanting to play for a long time.
I was under the impression this was something you have done before.
I have done this before. I've wanted to play it again, I should say, for a long time. The first time I ever played this game was at a Comp USA in a Dreamcast demo station. That should give you the idea of like how long it's been since I played that game.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Dude, Comp USA is not a thing, and Dreamcast came out, in 2000 or 99 or something like that?
If you remember Comp USA, leave a comment.
Yeah, Comp USA forever.
Rip Comp.
Yeah, dude, that's actually my first experience of a Dreamcast was at a Comp USA. I remember my parents were looking for their first computer, and we were told, get a Mac, and somehow we ended up with a Gateway. And there were Gateway stores back then, too. So I should also give you an idea on age.
Yeah, I remember those Gateway, like with the cow print.
Uh-huh, yeah. Yeah, and like the Gateway store.
Why was cows related to computers?
I have no idea. No idea. Maybe it was a cash cow. That's what it was. Okay, well, before we get started, you can find the Game Deflators Podcast on our out-of-date website, thegamedeflators.com. You can also find us on social media at Game Deflators on Twitter, at The Game Deflators on Instagram and Facebook, because Twitter doesn't like the. You can also find us on YouTube. Just search up Game Deflators. You'll find us on there. And, of course, you can find us on the podcast app you're listening to right now. Leave us a 5-star review if you have not. Give us a follow on any of our channels. We would appreciate it. And now on to what we recently picked up. I'm looking at our notes. Ryan, we both picked up nada.
I mean, I guess it's the show where we usually talk about games we've recently picked up.
Yeah, I will say I have to pick up the games on PlayStation Plus. So yeah. I'll be taking a look at those. There was actually Trek to Yomi is actually on there as one of the free games.
Wait.
Yeah.
Oh, I must have played that on Game Pass.
Probably. Yeah.
Because I was like, I've already played that, and I definitely didn't buy it. Did I steal it?
Maybe. It is Game Pass.
So I guess, I don't really do the PS Plus stuff anymore. I don't think I have any pick-up-ness coming my way. I would have picked up Street Fighter if, not for still drowning in my own tears of the kingdom.
I picked up some Japanese cooking knives, and that's kind of gaming-ish, right?
It's not gaming related.
It's like Cooking Mama. So I put Cooking Mama on the side, and I get my new Japanese knives, and I cut up my vegetables and stuff like Cooking Mama. It's exactly what it is. It's
What'd you make with those knives?
What did I make with them?
Yeah. What's the last thing you cooked, John?
Well, they haven't come in yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, the last thing I cooked was actually a Japanese-style steak with a Japanese cucumber and carrot ginger salad.
Nice. I made a shrimp etouffee.
I saw that, actually. I need to get a recipe from you. Okay, well, this is not the podcast where we talk about
cooking.
Cooking with the Game Deflators. All right, currently playing. You challenged me to Hat in Time last week, and
that was a couple weeks ago.
Okay, 2 weeks ago, and I beat it. So,
how'd that go for you?
So, well, I mean, you saw the final battle. It's cutesy. I mean, here's the thing. Like, in terms of, my wife asked me, she was watching me play, and she says, hey, isn't that a game that you would want to play with me? I said, normally, yes, but Ryan challenged me to play this game, so I have to play it and knock it out. And so she asked me, like, how it was, and I guess the best way I can go about it is it's not challenging, but it's frustrating. That's ultimately what it comes down to. There's a lot of situations where you have weird camera angles that you just can't combat and go around with. Like, it'll have like the Mario bounce or like jump up on the wall and hop over to the next wall type of deal. And it's just not as fluid as like a Mario game, although it is still kind of nice. There's like cable bouncing, so you bounce from like cable to cable type of situation. There's certain jumps that like you have to get it just perfect, otherwise you will fall to your death. One thing that's super annoying is how forgiving the game is. So it's like a blessing and a curse at the same time. And so if you like die in a level, you just kind of start back at your checkpoint with all your health, and then you just kind of keep trying again. If that's the case, then just give me unlimited lives. You know, like if you're just going to throw me back at the checkpoint.
What happens if you run out of lives?
There are no lives. It's just a
So
a
don't you
meter
have
of-
unlimited lives?
There's a meter of 4 hearts.
Health.
Health, yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, unlimited health, I should say, right? Like just let me keep playing at that point. Because it's kind of weird. Like you'll get into a level, you'll get as far as you get into it, and then you just go right back to the checkpoint that you were at.
Isn't that how every platformer works? Like, how is
No.
Mario different?
Because
Like, if
Mario-
you make it halfway through a Mario level and then
It's-
you get hit and die,
if
you
don't-
start back.
Yeah, at the checkpoint. But if you have a certain amount of lives, if you don't have unlimited, if you only have 5 lives and you run out of 5 lives, you start back at the beginning of the level, right? This has no lives. It's only 4 hearts. And there's even like a button thing that you can wear as the kid in the hat,
Like an extra hit.
where it's like if you get hit once, you die, right? I'm like, that would be even more frustrating, like because of how it sets it up. So, for example, the last level I was in was called the Sky Alpine, I think is what it was called, or Alpine Sky or something like that. And it's like, you know, Sherpas basically, and you are going through like all these different like flags to get to all these different levels. But the issue is that to get to the different like main levels, you have to get to all these flags, right? But it's a wider open level, and if you die within that, you always spawn at the beginning. So it would be super frustrating because if, for example, there's a checkpoint where I'm at in the main level, if I died, it shows as if I'm being transported back to the beginning of like the main area, except it would put me right back at the checkpoint. So it goes through all these different load screens and everything else just to put me right back where I was. And it's like, why even go through all of that? Like, just put me where I need to be immediately. So little things like that were kind of bugging me the whole time. But overall, I mean, from a platforming perspective, it's a cute game. It's super easy to go through. Like, I didn't 100% it by all means. I got enough hats to be able to clear it and go into the final like battle. Essentially, it's a gotcha game too at the most part. So it's like platformer gotcha game type of game where you are actively trying to get like different yarn balls, different types of items that you can put on display, which open up time rifts, and those time rift pieces that you get are actually turn into like Super Mario Sunshine levels. You know, where you have the crazy platforming Super Mario Sunshine. Did you ever play that? Where you have to collect like the suns?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like this empty space level where it's just pure platforming, right? And they're super hard. Hat in Time does that, except it's like super flippin' easy. So there was a couple of them that I went through in like 40 seconds. It seemed like I was just blazing through them. So easy game, just frustrating for certain elements of it. You know, I think if you've got a younger kid, say 10 or 12, you're trying to get them into platforming, this is actually a pretty good game, I think, to do it. There's a lot of fun stuff tied to it, but it's very much a child's platformer, and it shows a lot of the time. But there's also some kind of, I wouldn't say adult themes, but there's some like nice tongue-in-cheek type of jokes that kind of come through throughout the game that make it kind of fun for an adult as well as watching or playing. So overall, I thought it was 6 to 7 out of 10 is what I would give it.
Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed it.
Yep. Yeah, it was definitely, dude, it was on my list for a long time to consider playing that. So when you named it, I'm like, sweet. That gives me an excuse to buy it because it was actually on my Amazon list for games to purchase.
Perfect.
So it worked out. The other thing I played this week, which I don't, it will go unfinished, is Unfinished Swan. So I got to, I think there's 4 chapters in it. It's like a 2-hour game. I got to like chapter 3 out of the 4. And then, I mean, you wanted me to kind of try it out. You weren't like, hey, go home and finish it. I got through 3 of the 4 chapters. I had a good time with it. I thought it was pretty cool. Like, it very much like What Remains of Edith Finch, in which you kind of have this story that's going on and you're exploring this world and hearing this story and how everything's kind of coming together. Was pretty cool. I like the aspect of, you have like water balloons or something that you're constantly throwing in one of the levels. Where you have to, like, if you see a letter on the wall and you throw a water balloon, it kind of melts away this paint and opens up another like part of the story, and you just kind of listen to it throughout. And it's just lots of puzzling, which I really enjoyed. So I remember the platforming level was pretty cool because you had to like hit certain colors, if I recall, and it would drop like like if you hit red, it would drop like a ladder, or if you hit like a windmill type thing, it would open up doors and such and let in light to certain other areas. Then there was a part where you get like a vine, and to be able to get through the level, you have to put water on the wall and climb up the vine and such, so to kind of make your way through. So I thought that was all really cool. Each particular chapter or level, for the most part, had a key thing that you utilize to get through to the next part. So I know in like this dark level, you were kicking around an orb, and if you were not in the light, monsters of a night would attack you. So it was all really cool in general. And, you know, is it a game that I want to finish? Maybe. But it's on, you know, your console, and I don't want to get diving into more games on the on the Vita, because it's gonna tempt me to buy one, and that's the last thing I need to do is buy a Vita.
The Vita's the best console.
I know, man. It's on my eBay watch list, actually. I need to grab one, but right now is just not the time. I want to play other stuff, and you know, at this point, I can wait on a Vita.
Well, and I just don't think that you are... Like, you go on business trips and you don't even bring video games. Like, you're not, like, a portable gaming person.
I really am not. I catch up on movies, usually. So, most of my flights, it's very rare that I have a flight anywhere that's, like, an hour and a half. Most of my flights are, like, 4 or 5 hours when I go on business trips, because either, like, Orlando or DC or Chicago is where I'm usually flying. It's very, very rare that they're like, hey, we want you to go to Vegas or Texas or California. Like, I just don't get that often. Like, I know when I would go out to San Diego a couple times a year, it was like a 45-minute flight. Mm-hmm. You know, same thing for Vegas, like less than an hour to go to Vegas. So I could never, like, what am I going to do? Like, hop on a plane, play like 30, 40 minutes at most of my game, and then get off, and then I'm in business, you know? I
mean, it depends on, like, the type of game you're playing, but, I mean, that's what Tetris was invented for, my friend, and the Game Boy.
So
for businessmen on their way to business.
I would occasionally play emulators, but then I learned very quickly. I was like, man, why am I playing an emulator when there's so many great movies that I don't get to watch at home? Because I just don't watch movies at home either. Like, that's the thing. We usually watch TV or we play games. So I don't get to see a lot of, like, unless I'm going to a theater. And now that I have a kid who's under 1, I'm not doing a lot of theater, you know, experiences either. So
I'm not a big movie person, so I always default to games on trips.
Yeah, see, I love watching movies, especially like, because my wife is not a big fan of like dramas or Oscar-worthy type films, and I am. So whenever I go on those trips, I usually watch movies. Yeah, I binge like 2 movies one way usually, and then when I'm in my hotel room, I'll catch up on like other movies on Netflix and such that I haven't had a chance to watch. Like, that's just what I do on trips. It's not gaming, but you know, I've done some portable gaming here and there. It's just not my go-to.
Yeah,
like I can't game.
It's my favorite, so it's like we're very opposite in that way. I guess I never really realized till now.
Well, I can't game in a car. I get car sick, right? So gaming in my house, like, I have PlayStation, other things. Like, why would I mobile game in my house? And when I'm out and about, I'm busy. I'm not like just hanging back waiting for like an hour and a half, 2 hours to do something. And most times nowadays, if I have to go run an errand and, like, I don't know, get my tire changed or something like that, it's usually during business, like work hours, not on a weekend. Because if it's a weekend, my wife just drops the car off with me and we come back home, right? If it's a weekday, I have my laptop with me for work. So I'm like working at a mechanic's office. So there's just no time for mobile gaming in my life, unfortunately. Yeah, but currently playing for you.
So I'm still playing Zelda, and I am learning more and more all the time. So there's so much in this game, and it can be really hard to find a direction and kind of go with it. Like, I've been kind of just spending the last few weeks just kind of meandering, doing this, that, or the other. You know, I've done 2 of the 4 like main places. I'm really starting to feel like I'm going to go to a third one of those here pretty soon. But I've explored a lot more of the underground. I've explored a lot more of just kind of some different things on the overworld too. For example, there's these cherry blossom trees, and I've seen them, and I didn't really know what they were for. And I talked to the lady, and I guess I just never really paid attention or decided to follow up on what she was actually saying. But like, if you put a piece of fruit in this offering plate, this crazy weird animal will come out and it'll highlight like all of the caves in the area. So it's like, oh, cool. Now I don't have to just like go randomly run into these caves. Like I could actually go to all these trees and just be like, okay, let me just go do some cave hunting for a while. Or, I could go do, underground stuff for a while. Like you need these seeds when you go into the underground that create light. So I'll kind of go do underground stuff until I run out of seeds. And then I'll go do something else on the surface.
Nice.
So trying to find like different things to follow up on. Doing different building stuff has been a lot of fun since I got the auto build feature and have been able to start, trying to look at some cool things. I haven't made like any of the like Metal Gear Rex or giant robots or anything that people have been making online, but I have found like a couple of like a hover bike and an off-road bike that are pretty useful to make, and I've built those, and those are fun. Some of the things that I think that are really, what people talk about with this game, I feel like they don't faze me as much. Like I actually quite enjoy the weapon system now. Like it still sucks that they break, but I feel like when you have so many ways to fuse and create different weapons, like I'm trying to make different things, and I'm often making the same things, but like I feel like all my weapons are kind of continuously growing. Like I'm sure I'll reach a point probably soon where like most of the weapons that I'm going to have are going to be like, I'm not going to be able to find stronger things yet.
So if you break a weapon, are you able to repair said weapon,
No.
or is it's gone forever?
No, so it's like almost every enemy in the game is something that has like a weapon, and you find weapons in chests and just on the ground and stuff too.
Gotcha.
But like all of the weapons, like when the upheaval happened, for some reason all of the weapons decayed, so they're all like crappy and they've got all this nasty stuff on them. But whenever you kill like any enemy, they all drop like a horn or something that you can fuse onto the weapon to make it, now it's not just a knight sword, now it's a knight sword with a captain horn on it, level 3, and it's 40 instead of 10 strong.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of Dark Cloud. The weapon system in Dark Cloud is very much the same. Like you can fuse and create different weapons and whatnot, which is nice, except for the fact that when it breaks, it's permagon, and you always found yourself like, oh crap, I got to restart the level at this point to get my weapon back.
Mm-hmm. But you get, more weapon slots, and you're always trying to keep like certain things. Like I always like to have like a big rock stick that I can smack boulders with if I need to go mine some minerals or something. And I like a strong spear so that if I'm up against something that's like a little intimidating, I can kind of keep it at bay. I don't have to get as up close and personal. I've got a couple of different shields. One I always try to keep open so that if I find a rocket, I can fuse it onto it so that I can do a rocket jump. Or I've got one that always has a minecart on it, or one that has like is a wooden shield instead of a metal shield, because if you're out and it's storming and you have anything metal on, you're likely to get struck by lightning. So you try to keep a balanced inventory of, different things that are going to be useful in different situations. And I feel like the fusing mechanic has really made it so that like, rather than just having, oh, here's my strongest weapon that I'm just going to use until I find a stronger weapon, like maintaining an inventory of different weapons with different uses based off of the area you're in, I find that to be more interesting and compelling than frustrating. I think that there's so much to this game, and I'm definitely not going to get through all of it, but I keep running into like little side story missions or, just a little thing here or there, and they all make me like want to keep going. And like, I mean, even though they're very simple NPCs that just have like a few lines of dialogue, like they're all like charming and compelling, and they've got that, vibe where like I believe when I roll up to the stable that like these other travelers are coming into the stable, and the guy's going to set up his shop, and somebody's in the corner reading the newspaper, and I could go talk to them about like whatever, they'll be talking about something that I was doing recently.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be its own little mission kind of over here nearby where you're doing something, and probably a fairy fountain over there. All of these different settings are like so put together and make this world feel so much richer, I think, than the last game, in a way that, like, I want to keep going back to these places just to kind of see them and pass through again. It's a really big world, and I still have a lot left to see, but I do get kind of excited about coming back to someplace later. Just because there's so much game, I'm likely to forget it and be able to see it like fresh again.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So I'm still very compelled. I'm still going down that road. I did miss most of SGDQ was this week. I just kind of caught that a little bit yesterday, so I'm going to go back through and watch a bunch of the VODs this week. And then, other than that, that's about it. I need to get Darkness from you.
Yeah, remind me after we record to give you Darkness. Yep. And actually, I've got
Darkness 2?
right there.
Boom.
Yeah, maybe that's what I play next. We'll see.
So, that's all for this week. I guess we can move on to our discussion topic.
Yeah, so a lot of collectors like myself, we find ourselves in the, I like to call it the Netflix effect, where you have all of this media and content and such in front of you, and you're like, I don't got any movies to watch. I don't have any shows to watch. Because you're presented with so much, you just don't know what to do next, right? Mm-hmm. And I always find myself in a dilemma of video games. I'll finish up a game, and I just look on the shelf and I'm like, I don't know what the hell I want to play next. And that's where I'm in right now. Like, you kind of heard me a while back. I had said, I'm going to play, it was, Stray was the game that I was saying, hey, I really want to play this. Then we had other games that came across. We had our premium edition games and such that we were playing. And then Donut County was another one that I quickly played. Little things that kind of filled in the gap in between. But Stray was ultimately like a game that I was like, man, I really want to play this when I get the opportunity. Now I'm kind of like in that mode again. Like, I don't know what I want to play because I just beat Hat in Time. So, I'm kind of along the lines of like, do I play Wulong Fallen Dynasty and pick that up because I've heard some good things and it's kind of like a Sekiro type of style game, or do I just look at something in my collection, right, that I need to play? And that's really the dilemma, right? You just have all of this content. And so, I kind of pose the question to you on like, how do you, choose what to play next? And ultimately, like, for me, I guess it's more so what's going to take a certain amount of time, right? So can I beat this game in 40 hours? Can I beat it in 60 hours? Or can I beat it in 5 hours or 10 hours, right? So kind of considering my time on that and like what I want to knock out versus like what I'm in the mood for. So if I'm in the mood for an RPG, do I want to dive into an RPG that's 60 hours long, or do I think 25 hours long is about right? Which is why Cardia World of Fate came up, right, as one of those games for me to play, because it's about a 30-hour RPG.
Feels like you spent way more time than that on it.
You know what? The main reason on that is because I kept falling asleep. I've gotten into a better habit now where I'll drink like a cold brew at like 6:30 or so, and that generally will allow me to stay up till about 11 now. And so I can play through those games and I don't have any issues.
I'm sitting here yawning.
Yeah, as you're sitting there yawning, right? So like tonight I'll probably pick something up to play, and I'll have a cold brew actually before we do D&D tonight, and that'll kind of help keep me up. But that said, like I just finished a 6-hour, 7-hour game of Hat in Time. I just finished another game prior to that with Donut County and Stray, which were both like 4-hour games and a 2-hour game. So I really think like my next step here is RPG. Like really, that's kind of the next like.
I mean, that's your bread and butter.
It's my bread and butter, and there's a lot of games that I've wanted to play for years. I probably won't go tactical. I'll probably go for something that's a little more story heavy. Now the real question comes up, right? Do I go PS3? Do I go PS2? Do I go old school of PS1? That's kind of where that dilemma comes in now, right? Like I've got so many RPGs. Which is the one that I dive into? And
probably not another tactical.
Not another tactical, because that put me to sleep, dude.
Have you played Lost Odyssey?
I haven't, and that is on my list. But I'm kind of wanting to pick up an Xbox One, and
you
then
can play it on there.
Yeah, I know. I kind of want to pick up an Xbox One to get rid of the 360s and to just play it, on Xbox One instead. Because I have Xbox One games as well that I just don't play. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if anybody, I know everybody else has that exact same issue. So I would really be interested to hear in comments or reading comments, what is their process of elimination? My process of elimination is literally if I have 4 RPGs I want to play, I kind of line them all up and then I analyze, pros and cons on playing each one, right? So, this one's tactical. Okay, let's knock that out. Oh, that's 80 hours. And let's knock that out. Okay, we're presented with 2 50-hour games, right, or 40-hour games. Which one has better ratings, right? Which one is JRPG style with maybe anime type characters? Which one's more like photorealistic style? Weighing those types of options.
Have you played much of the Tales of series?
I have not played the Tales series, but I've been kind of leaning on playing Ys, the
Ys games.
Yeah, I've been kind of leaning on that.
God, it was forever before I learned that was pronounced Ys. I was like, why's? Why's they calling it that?
Yeah, well, I remember Ys Ark of Napishtim. I was like, why Ark of Napishtim? That makes no sense. Who names a game that?
Well, they're always throwing in an X, which means cross.
Yeah.
So it's you see all those games that's Street Fighter X Tekken, but it's Street Fighter Cross Tekken is how they pronounce or would say it.
There's actually an RPG I have. I think it's called Cross Edge on the PlayStation 3. That's actually one I've had my eye on too. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's where I'm leading right now. I got to do a little process of elimination and kind of go that route. What's the other one? The one with the Black Spirit type character. Okami. Not Okami, sorry.
Hokage?
Hokage. No, is it Hokage?
Okage.
Okage.
Hokage's the leader of the Ninja Village.
Yeah, it was God, man, we messed up on 3 different things. Why did I say Okami? I think it's close enough. It has an O. So, yeah, Okage Shadow King is probably on that short list too.
I don't know much about that other than the town is cursed with speaking Pig Latin. And that's what you're trying to overcome.
Dude, it's been so long since I messed with anything tied to PS2 RPGs. So mainly because of where it's located in my house.
Yeah.
I honestly I need to finish Terra Enigma. So I mean, there you go,
what do you
right?
mean where it's located in your house, dude? You've got headphones. Get a long cable, plug it in.
Oh man, I don't know. There's just something about having to stay upstairs and baby sleeping in one room and having to try and keep quiet, and my wife sleeping right next to the wall. I don't know. It's a pain in the ass to play up there. But my Super Nintendo and Retron are up there, and I do need to complete Terra Enigma, so that could be on the list too. So yeah, I don't know. How about you, man? When you have all these options available to you,
of course, chaos reigns in my life, and if I want to play something else, I drop what I'm playing and I pick something else up. And I do it all the time for things
You're the chaotic evil of this discussion.
Well, no, it's just that we were talking earlier, there's so much opportunity cost with your time. And I just don't feel compelled to have to finish a game if I'm not going to, have the time for it. And I think maybe this is because I did a lot of Blockbuster and didn't beat most of those games, so I've just always kind of been okay with not finishing games.
Care to explain Blockbuster to the kids listening?
So back in the day, but when you only had so much time with a game and you couldn't get through it, if it wasn't on a PlayStation with a memory card, you were out of luck. You were not going to get your save file back. You were either going to have to start over or hope, you did get the cart back and somebody else spared your file and started a new one. But there were so many times that I've been I don't know, it's a Saturday or a Sunday and I'm feeling just in a certain mood. And it's man, I would really love to play some RPG right now. Just something that's gives me those vibes. So it's maybe I'll boot up, Paper Mario again, or, I'll really pick up something new to try in that instance because it's I more just want to do the thing than to I tried that once with Octopath Traveler and I was God, starting a new RPG is reading for a half hour. So, it doesn't, picking something up new is always kind of what am I getting into? But with Game Pass, the opportunity cost is also really low because I don't necessarily have to own it or purchase it. I can just try something to try it.
Yeah.
So that's fun. I mean, so many people just like, play only the newest thing that just came out, or play so many indie titles that they're always playing something brand new. So like, I feel like a lot of people will, kind of churn through things, but eventually everybody kind of does reach a point at some point where they're like, I don't know what I want to play next. And other people will go back and revisit, something familiar, or like, there's speedrunners out there that like, they just play one game over and over and over and over. So
that's true. Yeah.
There's all kinds of different approaches, and there's all kinds of different ways. Like if you are in that rut, maybe try something different. Like if you don't know what to play, but you just want to play something, maybe boot up Mario and just see, like, okay, what are the levels you absolutely have to do to get through the game, and how fast can I do that? Mix it up for yourself, or, go back and do. I've thought in the past of like, maybe an interesting idea for like a show would be resuming wherever you left off at some game in the past. Like I'm sure I have so many saves on consoles for games that it's like, okay, what was happening and what was I supposed to be doing next?
You know what? You're kind of inspiring me to boot up .hack. I think we talked with Rue of the Retro Room a while back, and we were talking about like different game series. That's actually his new games resolution, if I recall. And yeah, .hack is one that I think it was the second game. I beat the second game. I was moving on to the third, and I've got my original save files, and I just never completed them.
Yeah.
So that's another one, and that's actually a fun game. I like those.
And that's the other thing too. Sometimes when you want to play a game, you might want a certain aspect from that game, but games come with a lot of extra baggage beyond just that. Like, okay, I want to play an RPG. Okay, well, this one has a bunch of, town building mechanics that you have to deal with it. Or this one has a whole bunch of cutscenes that you're going to have to watch. Or this one has no voiceover at all. You got to read the whole thing. There's always going to be those things that are in a game that maybe, you weren't realizing going in. And like, are you somebody who often bounces off of something? Or like, if you pick up a game, are you like, okay, I'm just going to get all the way through it?
When I pick up a game, I try to get all the way through it. I don't try to bounce. I do try to complete them when I can. Usually if I bounce, it's because something came up in my life that has forced me to kind of pause, and then I forget. Like the South Park game, Stick of Truth, right? I'm like at the very end of that game, and I still haven't beat it.
Oh, my favorite place to leave a game.
Yeah, right.
Right before the end.
Right before the end.
See, and that's the thing. Like, I think starting a game is more fun for me than finishing a game, because it's like a lot of the times at the end of games now, you get there and they're like, "Did you do everything? Are you sure you want to move forward? There's a lot of game here left. You might never come back to this game again."
You know what's a game that I bounced from a long time ago? Final Fantasy IX.
Yeah, I heard that that's coming up for a remake, and maybe we'll see something announced for that soon.
Yeah, right. 1 disc every 2 years for 4 discs total. Yeah.
No, not in the remake sense, but like
remaster.
Yeah,
they already did that. I thought.
No,
didn't they?
No, they did the Pixel Remaster collection.
No, I mean, like, there's a Play Asia set you can get that I think is like Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 that have like HD remaster on it.
I mean, but it's not like a wide release thing. Like, if you're going to download Final Fantasy 9, you're going to download a PlayStation 1 version.
I'll have to check, but I have Final Fantasy 9. It might be worth me diving into that again, too. I mean, there you go. There's the dilemma,
Final Fantasy 9 is one of those ones that I've started up a bunch of times, but not ever gotten like most of the way through. And last time I booted it up, I did buy it, I think, on PlayStation 4 or Vita or something. But now all of those games have like, deal max damage or skip battles or like all these other things. You can move 2 times speed. Yeah. And you can like blow through those games. And it's like, sometimes when I'm thinking about an RPG, I think if I was just going to want to pick one up, having those accessibility options makes that barrier to entry a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And maybe you can get a little bit more out of it than just, what you could in that day. Like maybe being able to get through an extra hour of the game faster is going to hook you quicker, keep you in.
Yeah, true.
These are all kind of related to this, but yeah, just like, let us know when you want to play a game and how you go about doing that, what you think about, what comes into it. What are you playing next?
Final Fantasy IX, probably. All right, let's dive into some discussion here, or not discussion, some of the topics that have come up this week. The first one is Activision Blizzard fires World of Warcraft game designer for making fun of corporate greed. And this is Kyle Barr at Gizmodo that wrote this one up. So long story short, basically, a guy put in some language into World of Warcraft for a goblin that talks about corporate greed and pretty much is like a tongue-in-cheek type of joke towards, corporations. And Activision Blizzard did not take kindly to that and fired the guy. But that's not really what the issue is. The issue is the fact that it went past certain types of levels to get from writing to actual design and in the game, and they promoted that stuff and then fired the dude.
Yeah, nobody, like, it's very difficult, I would say, probably in the modern era for an individual game dev to be able to hide something in a game that gets out there and people find. Like, that's got to be really hard.
Yeah.
This was not that. This was, hey, we need you, our employee, to write some dialogue for one of the characters in the game, and then we're going to go through all the approvals. I don't know if this was voice recorded or what, but like this went all the way through and got implemented, and then at the end of the day, they decide, you know what? We paid you to do all that, and we paid a lot of other people to stamp it, and we published it out there, and then we promoted it, and now you're axed for putting that in there. And this isn't like, he wasn't putting stuff like, man, Blizzard is a tyrant or something. He said things like, let's call this a cost of living adjustment and no profit sharing.
That's actually pretty hilarious.
It looks like another yacht for me.
That's
Time
honestly
to go back to the office. These are funny things, and this makes like all of their PR stuff look even so much worse. Like, how can you say you're trying to change your corporate culture when you're like being such a tyrant corporate overlord that you're coming down on your own staff for doing what you told them to do, basically, and you can't even poke fun at yourself a little bit and just let that exist, even though it's not explicitly about you. That's why everybody has a problem with you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not it. The problem is that you do all kinds of illegal, awful shit.
What they need to do to smooth this over for all of their employees who are angry about this is throw them a pizza party. That's usually what
that always fixes things.
Usually what corporations do.
Yeah.
At least shitty corporations. That's what they do. Mine doesn't throw us pizza parties.
Yeah.
We don't get them. We do get food, just not pizza.
This is so dumb, and I was so, like, John sent this to me, and it just, like, it enraged me. I couldn't believe this story, and I'm happy to help boost the message that Blizzard fucking sucks. And I'm not going to be like, you know what, I hope that deal doesn't go through so that I'm not tempted to play more Blizzard stuff again in the future. Like, I know Diablo 4 just came out, and it looks great, and I would be totally down to play some if it was free on my Xbox, but guess what? Maybe not.
You're like, I will refuse to play the free stuff.
I mean, there's a ton of free stuff I don't play.
Yeah. All right.
You could be one of them, Blizzard.
It could be.
Actually, you are currently.
All right. So, yeah, let us know what you guys think about that one. I thought it was a pretty shitty move by them in general. And the way that they, of course, lined it up was like it was against like company policy because he was, slandering the company basically, right?
Yeah.
It's like, come on. Like there's, like you said, there's no approval process. Even in my company, if I want to do anything tied to my job that goes into the market that the public is going to see, somebody writes the content, I check it, it goes through a QA process where multiple people look at it and say, yep, it's good to go, this is okay content, and then goes back to me to review, and then it goes to somebody else to review, and then it's put in the market. Like, it's so hard, even for like minimal like advertising. It's so minimal to get something out there. So you gotta imagine with game design, it had to have gone through multiple layers before it got hit into market.
Yeah.
So it definitely sucks for that guy. But hopefully he can open up a nice little lawsuit. That'd be nice.
Right.
For 68.7 million, or billion, I should say. All right, our next thing here is a rare Mega Drive game has sold for nearly $10,000, and this is Chris Scullion at Video Game Chronicle.
This was crazy. The only way this could have been a weirder article if this was like WADA graded.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, so this was, there was, what is it, Celtics versus Lakers on the Mega Drive, not the Sega Genesis, but the Mega Drive specific copy is what is rare here. Because like the Celtics versus Lakers is like a $5 game normally. This went for like, I think it was 8,000 pounds, did it say?
So it was 7,870 pounds or 9,800 USD.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was a game that was apparently never really released. Like, this game was supposed to come out, and I guess at the last minute, you know, they weren't able to get the NBA licensing in the UK or something, and they wound up pulling their shipments. But somehow, from their records, apparently 192 copies were sold. And as of now, a total of 13 copies of the PAL version are known to exist. So there's like, you know, over 100 and, you know, 70 or 80 something other copies out there potentially that could be, you know, valuable in quotes. But the thing is, the game is exactly the same. There's no difference between it and the US version. It's purely the packaging. So if you've got the complete inbox, man, you've got yourself a nice little ticket there. But otherwise, you've got yourself a $5 US game.
What's really crazy when you think about this too is there's potentially 179 copies out there in the wild. We'll just say 179. It's more like probably 100 that are sitting out there that are in people's attics. And they just have no idea what they have.
I don't even think that, dude. This is a sports game. Like, nobody values sports games. Like, I'm sure that this game, nobody knew that it was this rare, and it's gone for so long without anybody realizing that. It's probably, most of them are lost to time. Like, if there's only 13 known copies, I'd say it'd be a stretch if there were still another even 50 left.
Dude, you never know. I mean, honestly, I come across garage sales and stuff all the time. Not saying that I find rare games.
Yeah.
But like games that are $15, $20 and are like, oh, $1, you know, like for that game. Or it's like, here's a
Yeah,
stack
but would
of
you ever
titles.
buy a sports game?
Exactly. But that's the thing. Like, if you're looking for garage sales or something, like, yeah, you might not be looking for sports games specifically, but generally, if you're a high-end collector, you would know, okay, that's a rare title. And like collectors usually know if something's rare or not. Like people that are actively collecting titles. So like I've known that this game is a rare game, but it's a UK Mega Drive game. So am I going to come across this in the US? Highly unlikely.
Oh, you've heard about this before?
Yeah. Yeah, I knew
Oh.
this game was super rare. It was just cool that it sold for nearly $10,000. So yeah, I knew about this game. But yeah, I mean, like, so if I was to go out, like I have come across when I worked at the game store. God, I was so pissed about this. There's a game that was like I think it was like less than a few hundred copies were released on the Super Nintendo, and the game's worth like thousands of dollars now. It's like a biking type game. There was a little shop in the flea market. Apparently, the owner had that game sitting there, and in fact, the same game was sitting in my shop. And I didn't know about it because I just started, right? And I just started collecting again. And that game was sitting in our shop for like $10. Thousands of dollars is what it was worth. And we had it labeled at $10. When we were doing and people go in that store in and out, collectors all the time. Nobody knew what it was. So it's one of those situations where, you know, if you are somebody has in your attic and it's sports games, you probably think, oh, I'll just throw it out or I'll donate it or I'll sell it at some other time. And it just sits there and collects dust. That's kind of what we had. We had a lot of games in the back as well that some of them were super rare. And when after a while, as I started digging into stuff, I'm like, why isn't this on the shelf? Like, this is actually worth money. Like when I got my Vectrix originally, it was sitting in the back of the store, and it wasn't working. It was broken, but they're like, yeah, go ahead and take it. We don't know what it is. We're not going to sell it anytime soon. We can't test it. We don't have any games. That's literally conversations that we had. So,
well, and the Vectrix is such its own anomaly too.
But even then, it was like a $200-$300 console broken, I think, at the time. And now it's worth more now, complete in box. But, I mean, you're talking about stuff that we had back there that was worth decent money. And we just, nobody thought anything of it. So I can see it being the same situation here. So I do think there could be 50 to 100 copies maybe hanging out in the UK that just nobody knows. Nobody's thinking twice about it, So. All right, on to the next thing here. Pathfinder creator shares the final draft of the D&D OGL Rival. And this is Molly. Is that Molly? Molly Russell at wargamer.com. All right, Ryan, kick us off here.
Yeah, so we all remember what happened last year. Was that last year? Was that early this year? I don't know. Time.
I don't know, man.
There's the COVID thing messed everything up.
Yeah. COVID timeline is it's like the Flashpoint. That's what it is.
So sometime within the last year, I would say, D&D did their whole, open GL debacle that became a catastrophe. And, eventually, I guess they somewhat kind of salvaged the situation. But here's Paizo doing their level best to, do what they do and stick it to D&D and try to, do better than what Wizards is doing in their own way. So they've had a few drafts of this. This is their final draft coming out. I've never played Pathfinder, never looked at the rules. I know that it's all very similar, so I hope that everybody's very happy with where this landed.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, I think it's a little too late here. Not too little too late in the sense that, it shouldn't happen and it's not worthwhile to do something like this. But I think they should have captured this a little better when they were in the moment, right? Like, everybody's kind of forgotten about the whole debacle with D&D, right? Like, it skipped my mind completely because you got to think there's some new D&D books that came out, right? Cool stuff there. And there's also the D&D movie, which I think a lot of people enjoyed that. And that kind of, glossed over the situation that was present before. It was like, oh man, they released a great D&D movie. So everybody's hyped about it. And so Paizo coming out with this now, I mean, it was difficult for me to actually find this article. I was like, man, I want to get something D&D related. And this was like buried in the overall topics. I'm like, this is actually pretty cool that they're moving forward with this. But they're kind of a little late to the game, I think.
Well, I mean, so the thing is, it's not like this is going to promote any new product. This is just going to secure the lineage for the open source use of their rules moving forward.
For Pathfinder specifically.
Yeah.
And I think Pathfinder they were sold out of their book pretty regularly, actually, after the whole debacle. So it's kind of great for those players that are there. But this is something that if they could have said, hey, our final draft is going to be done on X date, look out for it, really kept promoting this during that time where, Hasbro was down in the dumps from everything that was happening. I think they could have taken a little bit more of in the moment and got people hyped for this. Whereas now it's just kind of an afterthought, right? Like, oh, it's Pathfinder. Cool. Unless you got into Pathfinder during the whole OGL thing before with D&D, you're probably not getting into it right now.
Well, I mean, this isn't for a new Pathfinder product. This is so that third-party companies can make their own products.
I know. And that's the thing. It's not as relevant now as it was 4 months ago.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's still, D&D is still growing that whole gaming industry.
Yeah.
And riding off the back of the D&D movie and stuff. I don't know. I guess if they had gotten their rules together earlier. But I think the point here really is that this is their third draft of this, and they want to make sure they do it right.
Yeah, I get it. I just wish they could have done a little more on the front ends, taking advantage of the situation to kind of make this a bigger thing than what it is today. Mm-hmm. It's great. I totally agree with it, and I've heard great things about Pathfinder, but is this something I really want to dive into? Probably not. Now that I've got all my D&D stuff, I could do D&D campaigns for the rest of my life at this point, given what I got. All right. Last piece that we have here is our inflation deflation. I am wondering if people can hear my son screaming on the other side of that door. We played some Sega Marine Fishing. Do you have a Plot? Oh, I'm reading the notes. I see your plot.
The plot. You fish.
You fish. So Sega Marine Fishing was developed by WoW Entertainment. Wow. It was published by Sega. It was directed by Tomoyuki Nishimura. It was released in October of 2000. It is a sports game, or otherwise known as a fishing game. Reception is a 7 to an 8 out of 10. And the plot is you catch fish, and a lot of them.
And you don't hit
targets.
any balloons.
You hit no balloons. No balloons at all.
Yeah.
All right. If you want to dive into the mechanics and such here.
Oh, dude, I'll cast off. So we we played this with the peripheral controller that is a fishing
rod peripheral.
Yeah. So it was a lot of fun. It took us a couple tries to get everything plugged in the right way, but eventually we got it working. It's a fishing game. There's fish and there's lures, and you can go to the shallows, or you could go
You mean shallows.
Shallow. Yeah, the voice work, not the most impeccable on this game, but it's a fishing game. Like, it's at least as serviceable as Big the Cat would
Carl
normally be.
Rafe.
Yeah. Like, I almost would believe Big was in this game. But well, maybe not that bad, I guess. The mechanics of fishing with the fishing rod, we can't really attest to how it works with the controller because we didn't do that. But with the fishing rod controller, it's got some tilt, kind of, lean the rod in the opposite direction of the fish. It's got the, what do you call the windy part that you spin around?
The reel.
The reel?
Yeah.
So it's got the reel that you spin in, and some buttons. And I mean, when you're fishing, you've got a meter at the bottom that's telling you the tension on your line, and you've got to lean that controller in the opposite direction of the fish, reel it in, but not too much, otherwise the line will break or the fish will get off or whatever. It's pretty fun. Honestly, I can see why they adapted this from the arcade for the home console and made that, if you were really into the fishing arcade games, you could definitely have a lot of fun with this at home. I mean, it's Dreamcast graphics, so it's in that wheelhouse for me where I think it's very acceptable.
I think so, too.
But a more modern audience really might be turned away from it. I thought that, there was a lot of different variety in the fish that we saw. There's not a lot of different variety in the gameplay or the locations. There were some mini games we tried out, a collection to kind of help you out. One was to teach you about the reeling mechanics. One was to teach you casting, and that one was awful.
Oh, yeah.
My friends, you're standing on a dock, and there's balloons floating across in front of you, and you just have to hit them with your lure. But the depth perception is so incredibly misleading, and the timing, oh my God, it was so ridiculous. We just literally sat there for 8 minutes missing over and over. We hit 2 balloons in 8 minutes and we got 20 points. Or 10 minutes, right? It was longer than 4 minutes.
99 red balloons, can't hit them at all with your...
It was awful. But it didn't detract from the game. I think it almost made it more fun as a novelty for us. But it made me really reflect on the game as we were playing it. I told John, I was like, I see us sitting here. We're playing this as a novelty for fun for the podcast, and we're going to talk about it. But people were amped back in the day. 2 people just like you and me sat on a couch, but they were drinking beer and they were having a balls to the wall good time playing this game. And I really think that, it was quite a bit of fun. And I would definitely, as a fishing game, say that this is probably the best fishing game I've played.
Yeah, this was a ton of fun. I totally agree with you. The variety of fish was actually surprising to me. It's been a long time since I played the game, but there were sharks, there were different types of tuna that we caught, there were mahi-mahi, there was barracuda, stingray, there was an octopus I think we could have caught. Lots of really interesting things, and obviously different types of lures that are going to be for different types of fishing. So if you're in the shallows, you probably want a popping lure.
I learned a lot about fishing from John today.
You did, actually. If we're looking for deep water, we're probably looking for a metal sinking lure or something that is actively diving. So there were little things like that, depending the level and where we were. You wanted to use a certain type of lure. So I thought it was good. It's been a long time since I played this one. I always wanted to play it again. And funny enough, I've had that fishing peripheral for years. I picked it up for like $5 at a thrift store one time and just never,
buy.
yeah, right, and just never did anything with it. Main reason being is I had no fishing games until I recently had that massive pickup earlier in the year that I spent whatever amount of money on to get all those Nintendo and Sega Dreamcast games and such.
And that's where you got that?
That's where I got this. So yeah, I was super when I saw that game, I'm like, oh man, I'm looking at, Skies of Arcadia and Chrono Trigger, and I'm like, fuck yeah, saltwater fishing. So I had a lot of fun. And there's a Sega Bass game too.
Yeah, that's the one I saw coming up when I was looking up the peripheral online.
Maybe that's one to play as well down the road. So
yeah.
I had a lot of fun. I would say it's a 7 to 8 out of 10. I would say it's more on an 8 for me as far as fishing games are concerned. I thought it was good.
It makes me want to see what a modern fishing game, like, have there been more innovations?
Yeah. I don't know about like reeling and stuff, but there's definitely fishing games that have come out in the last 5 years.
It wouldn't be the same without the reel, though.
I think there are some that have. I want to say the Switch has a reel for a game. Yeah. So, all right, let's look at some brass tacks here. So, a complete in box will run you $12.27. That peaked at $14.99 in September of last year. It's trending down right now. A loose copy will run you $9.61. That peaked at $9.06 in February of 2022, and that is trending up for a loose copy. For me, I think that $14.99 price is actually still reasonable if you came across it, and that's for a nice clean copy. I would say this game is deflated. Actually, I think that it is worth $14.99. So if you can find that price, definitely pick it up.
So my opinion is going to be slightly different because we did look it up, and the controller will run you like $34 loose. So if you get the controller and the game, you're spending, maybe about 40 something bucks.
But you brought up a good point.
You
brought up a good point beforehand. Well, $12.27 plus $35, you're looking at $46 roughly.
Yeah.
So the point you brought up earlier though is if you are buying a fishing controller, you're gonna buy more fishing games,
probably,
right? So if there's several other games that you want to play that are fishing related, you're kind of factoring that into like your overall console cost and that, right, for your overall experience. So I would kind of throw that out a little bit, and I would still factor it in, but like, let's just throw that out.
I think it makes it more niche in that way. Like,
yeah.
Whereas we could play a game sometimes and just be able to recommend it. Like, I'm not going to recommend this game just on its face value.
No.
Unless you're going to get the fishing controller, and then you're probably going to get other fishing games too. So if you're a fishing game person, get it.
Yeah.
Definitely get it. Like, no question. But if you're just a regular person and you're probably not going to get the controller, would I recommend this game for $13?
But I would recommend you get the controller. See, that's the thing. Even if you're not a fishing person, that is kind of a requirement to play any of these games,
yeah.
I think. And you're going to get the full-blown experience doing it that way. So I would say it's still deflated given the quality of this game. If you're looking for that controller to play these types of games, and any game that involves fishing or might use that reel, this is definitely a low-cost entry point type of game to get that full-blown experience. So I think regardless, this is deflated.
I'm going to go with... I can't go with deflated.
You know, just right?
I'll go with just right.
Okay. So it's deflated, folks. All right. Well, we've got people here. Doorbell just rang. D&D will be starting here pretty soon. I got to cook food. It is, I don't know, Ryan, what time is it? It's 5:51 on a Sunday, June 4th. And this has been episode 238 of the Game Deflators Podcast. My name's John.
I'm Ryan.
And thanks for listening.